Hola, my name is Maria Montes. I'm an independent lettering designer and educator, specialized in branding assets and calligraphy education. My presentation today is called Finding Your Inner Compass, and it was born in the middle of 2020 while most of us were at home for a long period of time, probably asking yourself if you're doing still what is important to you, if it really matters, the choices and your priorities are still aligned. So I hope this presentation is going to help you get started or keep going into your introspective journey. The first part of the presentation, I feel that is applied to any designer in the visual communication field. And the second part of the presentation is going to be focused on lettering, which is a lot of my practice. So I'm now going to be sharing the screen. And I'll start the presentation by giving you a short background about myself. So I'm originally from Barcelona, and I moved to Australia in 2006 to learn English and work as a graphic designer. The plan was always being in here 2 to 3 years and then move to New York City, but life happened. And 6 years later, I became a permanent resident. And after 10 years, I became an Australian citizen. My journey in Australia wasn't easy at all. I faced a lot of challenges. I felt extremely alone and isolated as I didn't have any friends or family and I didn't speak the language, but it's been one of the best decisions I have ever done in my career and in my life. It's been 15 years on this island, and I have to say that probably the presentation I'm giving you today completely started in 2006 when I landed here and materialized in a written article last year. But being by myself on this island gave me the mental space to question what I wanted and ask myself who I was. So let's go into the presentation. So the first point I want to cover here is what is actually an inner compass. So an inner compass is a set of principles to guide you through life and work and to help you understand what things work and what things don't work for you. It is a set of tools to help you answer yes or no in life and your creative practice. And I say life and work because for me, I find it very difficult to separate because they constantly feed from each other, but not everyone is like that. So I just want to make a point that everything I'm going to talk to you today is from this perspective where I find that these two are constantly feeding from each other. So this set of tools can help you answer some of the following questions. What are your core principles? Do you have clear values? What works for you? What things you don't want to do? Where do you want to go? An inner compass doesn't show up. It is a constant and ongoing self-reflective practice combined with mapping, planning, analyzing, and reevaluating what is important for you. And this will be constantly evolving depending on your priorities, life circumstances, and projects. I feel like finding your inner compass can help you answer some of these questions. Are you a designer who wants to work for a big agency or a small studio? Would you rather be a freelancer? Do you have the privilege of choosing? Because not everyone is in a position to choose. And this brings me this point, which is stability versus flexibility. Personally, I'm an independent designer, and I think one of the most positive things about being independent is the flexibility. On the other side, one of the downsides is the financial uncertainty, but I'm very aware that financial uncertainty is the counterpart of having the freedom of being your own boss. So you will need to work out, can you handle or afford financial uncertainty? And this will depend on your life circumstances and also your emotional financial state. So some people need more money to feel financially safe. This also, for me, I think that to cover and release stress, financial stress, if you want to go with a freelance career, a very good option is having a part-time job, a 2-day a week work, and it can be creative, working for a studio, it can be educational, being a teacher, or it can be working for an institution or for a retail space where you do your schedule and you can completely switch off your brain after your shift is done. If you have like an stationary addiction, you might find it very helpful to work for an art store. Or I have other friends of mine that work for libraries. So whatever is your avenue, it is a very good option to have something that is going to cover all your basic needs. So you release stress from your creative outlet. Now, the next question is how to find your inner compass. So my answer to this question is collecting data about yourself. And I have created 10 points to help you go through this data collection. So the first question is, find out your motivations and cultural interests. Are you into music, movies, books, fashion, cooking? What makes you stay up late at night? What makes you more excited, going for a road trip with friends or spending the weekend indoor reading a great book? I recently found a quote that said, "We are the sum up of the books we have read." And this brought to me a question, and I thought, I want to make a list, and I invite you to make a list of what are your 10 favorite books and what these books tell about yourself. Other questions you can ask yourself is, can you tell me the color of your wardrobe? Is it looking like grays and a range of grays and blacks? Or is it looking like a lot of placement prints? Or like in my case, is it full of clothes from your parents and grandparents and full of patterns? All right, point number 2, identify what is good or bad stress. So a good way for me to answer what is good stress in a simplified way is, a good stress for me is a challenge that will help me grow. And in particular, is a challenge that will help me grow my confidence. And I say confidence because for me, confidence is a muscle. And in my case, I need to exercise it on a regular basis. I feel like otherwise I become unfit and I start to see only my smaller self. After I have delivered a project successfully, my muscle feels really strong. After I lost a client or being rejected for an art grant, my muscle starts to get weaker and I need to go back to the gym. But the stress, the answer for me is, but the stress is when I feel overwhelmed. And this can happen because I don't feel prepared to perform a task, or I need to rely on an environment or people that are outside of my control, or when someone put a huge expectations on top of me, or when someone gives me a project with a completely insane deadline. Now, point number 3, writing as a therapeutic and introspective tool. So I'm going to share my experience with writing. In 2015, I opened my solo exhibition. And a few days after opening the exhibition, I felt completely lost. So I decided to call a friend and ask for advice. I brought my laptop. I wanted to show him my work. And one of the first things he said to me was, don't show me your work and don't show me your website, but tell me, what do you do and why? At the end of our chat, he strongly suggested to start writing about my work. So I'm not a native English speaker, and I have not been feeling very confident about my English skills and especially my writing skills. But I thought to myself, well, there is nothing to lose. I was already an independent designer by that time, and I was already teaching. So I thought my email newsletters cannot hurt. It can help me to reach out and to show my work and advertise my courses. So up to now, I have been doing this for 7 years, and I realized my newsletters actually have become a visual diary where they have helped me to be incredibly accountable by having to show up every 2 months, no matter what. They have made me more articulate by writing more. They have made me to reflect on my journey and realize that every 2 months, I have accomplished more than what I think I have, because in my day-to-day basis, it's not so obvious to see all my progress. Currently, my newsletters are divided in 3 parts. The first part is a personal letter I craft. The second part are my courses and projects I have accomplished. And the third part is a list of resources to become a better designer and a better educator. You don't have to do this writing publicly like myself, but you can do it privately. So not publicly like me, but privately. And I find it that it's going to be very helpful. Okay, point number 4 is learn about yourself in a personal, creative, and financial way. Which ones of these questions are you most interested? And if more than one, in which order? Being a good friend, being a good lover, being a good partner, being a good parent, being a good creative. Some people will choose one and be the brightest, and other people will be all-rounded and want to have like an okay job, good food, good social life. Now, are you an email me or call me person? Are you an early bird or a night owl? Are you a give me time to think or let's work it together? Are you attention to detail or give me the big picture? Are you a tell me what to do or let me figure it out for myself? I have run all these questions with my very good friend, Lauren Vilitati, using the Emotional Culture Deck, which is something you can download for free. And I very much recommend it to do it with a friend that you very much trust so that you can have very honest questions and answers. Now, point number 5, try, tweak, try again, define and redefine success. I'm going to share with you a couple of things that for me meant success until I did them. And then after doing them, I actually realized that they are not as good as I thought they would be. So the first one is my design label. In 2014, I co-founded a design label called March 22. And in that design label, we design limited edition scarves, cushions, and other specialized design items. And I hosted my first market. For my surprise, although I love going to design markets as a user, I realized I hate design markets as a seller. So I felt I was completely attached to the products I was selling. I was very, very attached emotionally to those products. And I found it that by looking at people walking by and not wanting to buy my product, not even wanting to look at them, or even not understanding the difference between a product that is made by one independent designer or two, like in my case, and a product that is mass produced with a global company sold in 20 countries, people could not really see the difference. And for me were obvious, but not for everyone was. So I was too close to this product, to the products I was selling. And I felt completely hurt by being there, exposed to many people's lack of interest. Now, the second the second point is my font. So this is another experience I've had that have taught me a lot of what I thought success might mean and what I felt when I accomplished the project. So since I first studied typeface design, I had always been very interested and almost obsessed to publish a font independently. So Typodarium emailed me, which is a typographic publication based in Germany, in 2017, and asked me if I wanted to be part of their special golden edition calendar. And of course, I said yes. At that point, my Green Fairy font was actually not a font, it was only 26 drawings in Illustrator. And of course, this is a calendar. So you are going to be like, well, there are going to be some numbers involved. Yes. So I had to design number 5 in a rush to deliver the deadline of this page. And then I asked myself, what am I going to do now? Because I told them it's a font. So I have now to convert 27 drawings into a fully functioning font file containing more than 600 glyphs. This process took me 9 months full time, and it taught me a lot about font production and a lot about myself on the way as well. In September of that year, I could confidently share that my Green Fairy font was now coming to life as a chromatic font family, highly ornamented for display purposes. The font design and production took me 9 months, and the font release took my fonts 6 months. So it took them 6 months to answer whether yes or no they wanted to accept my project and grant me as an independent fund funder. So the whole process took nearly a year and a half, and it's taught me a lot about font design. And I can say after that, I felt like I have experienced a sort of font hangover for over 2 years. And what I thought it was going to be the most amazing feeling ever, I have been feeling a very different feeling from it. I haven't decided if I am going to do it again, and probably I will, but it's been a very, very good learning curve. So I'm going to say sometimes what you consider a success, it might look or taste very different once you have done it. So there is no shortcuts. You have to go and do it. Point number 6, identify your personal interests. I am personally interested in language and creative leadership. I have been following Jim Antonopoulos for several years now. He writes in my opinion, a very valuable email newsletter. And he's also released a collection called the Mentorship Collection, which is a very affordable reading. And I recommend everyone if you're going to be engaging in a mentorship relationship. So I'm also interested in creating a very educated and respectful and supportive creative industry. I strongly believe that bringing more voices, colors, and underrepresented groups up on the stage can only open up our view of the world and make us better. My next point is find your role models. Find people you admire, not only for their work, but for their ideologies, work ethics, or ways of living. I'm a 44-year-old designer, and the type seen in Australia looked like that when I released my font. Now, currently, I am looking at this woman very, very closely because I'm a designer that have no kids by choice. And I am very much interested in looking at other women who have crafted the same path for myself before. And I feel very encouraged and inspired by strong voices and leadership positions of people that have taken similar choices as mine and are crafting the path before myself. Number 8, look for a mentor. I'm going to share my experience with mentorship, but before that, I want to touch on these points. So teaching and coaching are paid services that are normally structured services. Mentoring is normally an unpaid service and is not so structured, so it's more volatile depending on the mentor's schedule and availability. My experience with mentoring is with Kevin Finn a few years ago. So I had been following Kevin for many years. I very much admired him. And we met once very recently after one of my conference talks. A few months later, after that brief meeting, I emailed him because I felt very stuck in my career and I asked him for advice. Kevin called me straight away and asked me many questions to make sure he was the right person for me. And just by talking to him and answering the questions, it was just clear that he was exactly the person I needed. We scheduled only 2 or 3 telephone conversations, and there was many weeks in between each phone call. He gave me a lot of work to do. He gave me many tasks and asked me many questions, and the majority of the workload came from me. So this is a very different relationship to a coaching service where I feel like it is still a two-way, a straight relationship. But in this case, with a mentorship, most of the work needs to be carried by yourself. And the mentor is a sounding board for you to bounce back ideas and suggestions. After these 3 conversations with Kevin, I felt extremely focused again, and I felt decisive and ready to keep going with my career again as an independent designer. I would say no matter which stage you are in your trajectory, having the right mentor, it's only to help you grow and evolve. Number 9, develop your emotional intelligence. Why am I doing this? Because of fear? Because you think you're not good enough? Because you want people to think you're this or that type of person? Are you your worst enemy or your best friend? Are you dealing with perfectionism? In here, I have broken down 2 points under this point, which the first one is called self-worth versus self-sabotage. And I want to talk about my perspective. So I believe that I'm a woman who actually did not believe in myself and my potential for many years. I have spent a lot of years of my life at war with myself. I internalized my parents' voice, and after they stopped judging everything I was doing, I kept going at myself in the same way. I have been paralyzed by fear, imposter syndrome, and perfectionism many years as well. The latter one, especially, is an old toxic friend of mine, often hanging around, reminding me that nothing is ever enough. I push it away, but perfectionism pushes back. It is a very long journey, and I'm very much working on this at the moment. So I feel like you cannot, and answering to this point, internal versus external validation, you cannot expect someone else respect your work if you don't do it in the first place. And this is a very tricky situation to be in if you are an independent designer, because sometimes, and most of the times, you decide the value of your work. And if you don't value your own work first and foremost, you are very much self-sabotaging yourself. On this topic of internal and external validation, I want to share with you a quote from American writer Anne Lamott that says, "There is nothing outside of you that will help you in any kind of lasting way, unless you are waiting for an organ. You cannot buy a chief or date serenity and peace of mind. This is the most horrible truth, and I so resent it, but it is an inside job." So in here, I want to say that I think once you trust yourself and acknowledge your strengths and weaknesses, I believe you can create a meaningful career. My new post-COVID wall, it's also filled with fear, but to be honest, is also filled with a lot of hope. I am proud of myself as I see how far I have come. I'm at peace with myself again, and I'm trying to celebrate every win. My new world is filled with a lot of learning and with a lot of challenging myself. It is about juggling creativity, marketing, admin, accountancy, and money, which is a lot. And it feels scary at times, but it also feels very exciting. I feel that my career is full of opportunities. I just need to choose the ones that are aligned to my values. Now, learn about financial literacy. Whether you're an independent designer or not, most of your life you are going to be dealing with money. So the better you understand money and the structures around money, the better you're going to be able to navigate life. So the first thing I would say is I very much recommend reading The Barefoot Investor. And the second thing is that it will be very beneficial to do a financial detox by answering in exact numbers these questions. How much money do you need a month to pay all your non-negotiable expenses? How much money you spend on food every month? How much money you spend on entertainment? Do you have private health insurance? Do you have uni fees or a uni loan? How much emotional financial security do you need? Okay, selling creativity. So in here is also very important, especially if you are going to be operating as a one-person business. And I want to mention a couple of slides from a course I did recently from We Are Tank called The Creative Pro. So there are many types of rates, not only a couple. So hourly rate, daily rate, weekly rate, fixed rate, results-based rate, subscription rate, and prepayment rate. On the other hand, there are things that you can and cannot control. And I think this is very valuable to make sure that you focus on the things you actually can. So let's start with the things you cannot control, which are how many other people do what you do, who else receive a client proposal, the timing for presenting a proposal, the client's budget, the client's mood on the day, the cost of your equipment, the client's perceived value, if you get the project or not, the weather. Okay, now things you can actually control: how you behave in the first meeting, what you say in your proposal estimation, how much time you spend preparing the proposal, the scope of work, the way how you look or dress at your first meeting, whether you overcook or undercook the scope, when the first meeting happens, the value proposition, the price, your brand, the speed at what you offer to work. Okay, so income streams. It's very important for me to understand, and I think for everyone being independent, to understand that working for a client is not the only way to generate income. You can sell products, license designs, receive book sales, book royalties or font royalties. You can teach for an institution or independently, or you can combine them both by layering your income resulting in passive and active revenues. So an active revenue would be creating your freelance folio and sending examples of your work to clients to outreach and find clients to engage you for projects. A passive income will be, for example, a licensing portfolio where everything is for sale. And you can also receive passive income by font royalties, book sales, pre-recorded courses, classes by subscription or flat rate. You can also have YouTube or Patreon memberships and other things. So a very good position to be is actually layering a passive and income streams, so you feel in a very strong position or a stronger position. Now, this second part of the presentation is going to be focused a lot on lettering because it's a lot of my major practice. So what I call content and context. If you're generating personal work, what you say on your personal work, it's very important because it's an extension of who you are and what you are interested. Also, the context does matter a lot because it's going to help you to narrow down the type of outcome or the medium of this outcome. For example, is there a specific lettering style you want to specialize in? Can be illustrated lettering. Can be you only want to do a script lettering. Can be you only want to do black letter. Or can be you want to have a big range of outcomes. You will find some designers will have a really strong voice and a type of work very easily identifiable. And you will find other designers which have a very, very wide range of toolbox or palette where they want to answer different voices from different clients in different areas. So that's the first question. The second question is there a medium in particular you want to focus on? For example, lettering for murals, indoor or outdoor murals. Do you want to specialize on vector lettering? Or do you want to only specialize in lettering animation, for example? On the other hand, would you like to specialize in hand lettering or tactile lettering? Now, the next question is, do you have a specific area of interest in design where you want to apply your skills? These are examples of packaging work that in particular, this one for a beer company that never saw the light. And this is a concept I created to display my font, my Green Fairy font in use. Do you want to apply your lettering skills for apparel and streetwear? Or do you want to go into the branding sector and apply your lettering skills for logotypes? In this case, this is a logo for a video game and the UI design. This is a logo mark for a calligrapher. Other avenues could be, for example, design activism and human rights. So depending what your interests are, that's going to help you to narrow out the outcome. The next question is, are you interested in the academic pathway or are you more interested in the self-taught way? So for me personally, I have gone through both. So I graduated as a graphic designer in Barcelona, and 3 years later, I completed a master's degree in UI design. After that, I worked as a digital graphic designer for 10 years, and then I reached a point where I needed a break from my work, so I decided to go back to study. I decided to go back into typography, so I flew back to Barcelona and studied a postgraduate course in advanced typography. And a year later, I flew to New York and I completed a condensed program in typeface design. And these that you are seeing here are my 2 attempts at completing a font. Then I came back to Melbourne and I was looking for work, and a project came to my door. A very good friend of mine called Laura Piera emailed me and told me that she needed someone to work to create textile designs. And I told her, but you know, I know nothing about textile design. And she said, I know that, but I also know that you can do it. Do you want to do it? So at that point, I was really hungry for new things. I just finished my 2 type courses, and I was interested in doing anything else than just being a graphic designer, doing logo and stationery design all the time. So I said yes. I locked myself in my bedroom, and thanks to Google and YouTube, and I would call the University of YouTube, I became a professional textile designer. I have gone through through both paths and enjoy both of them very much. Definitely, I can say that if you're a self-taught, it's going to help you a lot to have a structure, and if possible, to have a deadline or deadlines where you have to be accountable and show up. Otherwise, it's easy to get lost. And in my case, it was really good that I was doing this self-taught practice and the real clients with the real deadlines, so that I had to show up and I had a limited amount of time to figure out things, so that my learning curve was really steep, and it was great. Now, multidisciplinary versus a specialist. So as you can see by my examples already on this presentation, I have been through many different areas. I have started as a graphic designer. I moved later on as a textile designer. I have been a teacher. I'm still a teacher. I have been a typographer, a type designer, a letterer, an illustrator. I have opened 3 solo exhibitions as an artist, and I'm currently developing a lot of branding assets. So if you are going through this path of trying different things, it's totally okay. And it's going to it's not going to be the easiest path to change disciplines, but it's going to be a constant learning curve where you need to be upskilling and learning new things. If this is what you feel like doing, I think that it can be really rewarding, because maybe between one specialization and the next, you can find your strongest code and then go from there onwards. In my case, all these practices, I see them as under the same umbrella, which is the umbrella of being really hungry for knowledge and being very interested in learning to see. And this is the learning to see is for me what ties all the disciplines, and in the end has worked out very well for me, because I feel like I have been able to incorporate in many occasions all these disciplines into projects where I have had illustration skills, pattern making skills, graphic design skills, type design skills. So they have come together in many projects, in many occasions for me. Currently, my practice is divided by 3 areas. I'm an independent designer and I do client work. I am an educator teaching calligraphy and lettering, and I create self-initiated work in a regular basis, because this keeps me fit and keeps me inspired. My personal work is a really important part of my practice. Now, learning by teaching. The last part of this presentation, I want to talk to you about my experience learning from my teachers and also learning from my students. So I think that by being a teacher have made me a better student, actually, because have made me realize that it is okay to ask many questions and I shouldn't be afraid of asking many questions. Also, being a student have helped me to become a better educator, because I have realized that the people opposite me want to learn, and they know what great work looks like, and they know that they cannot make it yet, but they have this hope and aspiration to get there, and they need a vehicle or someone to guide them and to teach them. So I take teaching very seriously, because I understand that we have a responsibility on helping people, helping students find their outcomes, and helping them to believe that they have a great potential. So my teaching journey has been incredibly rewarding for my career. In my personal view, I feel like I am not interested in creating an army of calligraphers and lettering artists that are going to be producing the same type of work, but I'm interested in creating a respectful environment where everyone feels safe to show up, where everyone is treated with very big respect, where calligraphers want to learn about letter forms, about the structure of the alphabet, about the history, context, but also ultimately they want to learn about themselves, but by understanding their gaze, their interests, their intentions. And this, in the end, will be the final, your work in the end will be reflecting these 3 points and not my model or my instructions. I believe that we do not see things as they are, we see them as we are. So it is very important that you understand what are your points of view. And also it's important you put yourself into someone else's shoes when you are working for a client or for an audience. Now, to finalize this presentation, I want to touch on the power of asking questions. I personally think that asking questions is really powerful. And I have been asking myself a lot of questions that I have shown on this presentation. Sometimes there are questions that are very difficult to answer. And recently I have been asking myself a set of questions that I feel are very important, and I want to share them with all of you. What is the reason why you are designing? What are the impacts of your work? What legacy you want to leave behind in this visual culture? What responsibilities do we in the design sector have? I feel like in the next decade, these questions are only going to become more and more important, and we are going to be facing bigger and bigger challenges, as the challenges we are already facing, like a global pandemic, climate crisis, and racial and social injustice that have been going on for a very long time. So these questions are very important for me, and I think are very important for everyone interested in design, and especially in education. To close this presentation, I want to say that I believe we are all students in each chapter of our own life. I'm currently on chapter number 4, and I can say that I have learned a lot more from my mistakes and challenges than from my victories. So my last suggestion today is to be curious, try everything out, learn and unlearn, and find your very own way. You can find a written article also called Find Your Inner Compass on my website, and you can also find me on social media with my username. I'm going to stop sharing the screen now. And to finalize this talk, I want to say a huge thank you very much to 8iPi for giving me your platform to amplify my voice and to share my insights and trajectory with all of you. So thank you very much.